move to the digital accelerated significantly. One of the reasons is that yet again change in the behavior of consumers. Shopping online has become a new norm, and largely because it has been a safe way to get access to the goods. And sometimes, for some people, it was the only way. So businesses that did not provide online experience recognized an opportunity, and with this webinar, we want to help them to realize it. Now, our subject is about investing smart, getting ROI right away, but also to build the foundation for the future of your digital at the same point in time. And before we start, let's quickly go through the ground rules for the session today. The webinar will take about 90 minutes, well, less so, almost 85 by now. After each session, we will be able to ask some questions to the presenters, as well as we will have a Q&A session and panel at the end of this. And if you wish to ask a question to any of the panelists, please put it on the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we will do our best to provide you with the answer. If you have any issues during the webinar, please type in the chat box, and one of our teams will try to assist you. Now, after the presenters, I would like to introduce you to our presenters, and we are fortunate enough to get a great mix of Salesforce customers. Sorry, that's a part of the team working from home, Salesforce themselves, and experts from eWave. And now please welcome Femi Adeboye, Account Executive, Salesforce Commerce Cloud at Salesforce. Alex Ursu, Regional Account Manager, Marketing Cloud at Salesforce. Tim Halaska, Regional General Manager, Digital Strategy at Toys R Us Asia. Wade Gava, Head of Solution Delivery at eWave Commerce Asia. Sushant Sahani, Strategic Digital Transformation Executive and Advisor UK. And Anna Litvinenko, BoxyCharm USA, Digital Transformation Project Manager at eWave Commerce. And finally, Ketan Kansara, Global Head of Pre-Sales at eWave Commerce. Now, allow me a second, I'll just switch off to my headset. It's going to be better, and we will start with the presentation in the meantime. So let me you all hear me okay again? Sorry, can you just wave it if it's all good? Awesome, thank you so much, guys. So agenda, 3 key components of the agenda. First, it's industry insights from Salesforce and on the current trends. Then customer cases, including BoxyCharm and Toys R Us Asia, and an interesting case from the financial services, and an accelerator solution created by eWave. So I think that's it. I think we're all ready to go. And I'm going to hand over to Femi and Alex, who will talk us through their views of the current state of affairs globally and within Salesforce as a global organization. Off to you guys.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction, Daniel. If you toggle to the next slide, I've got some interesting stuff to talk to you guys about. So I've been in e-commerce for a long time now, and I've never quite seen anything like this. We had the financial crisis not long ago. I want to start things off by engaging the audience here. So everyone in the room, have a bit of fun. This is all based on March, near when most of the lockdowns were announced. There's some great news on here. There's some troubling news on here. But to set the expectation, by the end of my segment of this insights study, I think you'll find that we're all in a very positive scenario and there's a great opportunity. So first, let's look at the top 5 fastest declining products, not necessarily industries, just products. And you can see straight away that products that have relations to travel or holiday are taking a massive tumble right now. And bridal clothing in the top 5 here. By the way, just for comparison, this is a list of about 200 different products in e-commerce, studied around primarily North America, but also some others. And you've got the full list here available. We can share the link after the call. And you saw some of the results there. No surprise to see gloves being the fastest growing in terms of sales, but that was back in March. So that's most likely changed now. If we go to the next slide, you can see the top fastest selling. Now, the good news is on the top fastest declining, we're seeing some high numbers of 80 to 90% in the top 5, top 10 products. Not as impactful as the top 5 accelerated selling. So disposable gloves, we're seeing a 670% increase. In the pharmaceutical industry, we're seeing a 500% increase. Natural raw minerals and foods were at the 300 towards the 400% increase. And this was all over the period of about 6 weeks from the lockdowns being announced to the pandemic really hitting us. So as painful and as unfortunate as this time has been, and of course, wishing you all well in this difficult time, there's a massive opportunity for anyone who's digitizing their business or who's planning to or already has a digital environment to capitalize upon what we see. Now, this is what you saw impacting in March towards April, right? Very large impacts on certain products. Let's take a look at industries though, because it's quite positive, the long-term impact we're seeing of the pandemic and the COVID-19 crisis, as many countries now start to slowly recover from what we've seen. So if we go to the next slide and take a look at what we have here, I've taken a few industries, right? And if we pay attention, each slide, stay on this one for a second. If we look at March as our specific area, right? That's when most of the lockdowns were announced. If you look at March 2020 versus 2019, you can see there's a significant dip in sales for most industries. So food and beverage, which was probably one of the hardest hit industries in terms of demand. So in the UK, we had a scenario where all of the UK websites except one crashed when the lockdown was announced, because everyone in the country flocks to those websites to make mass orders of toilet paper and food and beverage and whatever it might be, assuming they're going to be stuck in their homes for the next few months. So that was a massive dip we saw in March, then it spiked up. So food and beverage has had a pattern where we saw it quite low in March, spike up as a result of the pandemic. But as you see, when we get towards May and June, it's recovered and it's all ahead of 2019. So overall, that short period of dip has not impacted e-commerce overall in this particular industry. Let's go to the next slide where I looked at another industry, right? So hit much harder by the pandemic, clothing and apparel and accessories, right? These are not, life-dependent things that we buy. They're not critical to our day-to-day living, where you have to, if someone announces a lockdown, you don't go to, boohoo.com and start buying shirts and jeans, right? However, what we saw off the back of the pandemic, so you see it dip in March, but as you get towards April and people start recovering and everyone's starting to realize, it's not the end of the world, e-commerce has started accelerating in apparel and accessories as well. So that's the fascinating thing we're seeing. So even though a lot of the industries have been hit, and my condolences to any businesses that haven't actually survived the pandemic, for those who have survived, there's a fantastic opportunity to capitalize on what is now becoming an increase in the amount of people who are comfortable buying online. And this is kind of like that Generation Z consumer, as well as the older consumer. These individuals are now more comfortable transacting online because they've been forced to transact online. That's why even with the pandemic, we're seeing 2020 is having a higher e-commerce impact than 2019. If we go to the next slide, there's other industry I've covered, sporting goods. Again, a dip in March. Look how consistent this is, guys. We're seeing a very regular pattern here. Dipping in March when the pandemics and the lockdowns are announced, sporting goods not considered essential in such a situation. As people start realizing it's not the end of the world, it's increasing because other individuals from different demographics have been exposed to an online shopping experience that they didn't necessarily feel the need to do before. And suddenly we're seeing a big increase now as we get towards May and June in e-commerce. I don't know if there's one more there before I conclude my segment and hand over. Let's go to the next slide. And home and garden. I wanted to include this actually because as you saw in the slide earlier when we saw fastest declining, you saw some home and furniture was actually in the top 10 for like fastest declining e-commerce items. Well, guess what? Also, we're seeing a spike now as we get past April in e-commerce transactions. And again, we're ahead of 2019 and 2020. So even the industries that have been hit the hardest by this pandemic, for those who have survived, it's going to change the way e-commerce works forever. And we're seeing a large pool of customers who are now very comfortable shopping online that are going to be impacting your online environments as you go to market with your e-commerce and marketing platforms. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Fascinating insight. And as you see in June, hitting the highest peak there so far for the year. I'm going to hand over to Alex now, who's going to talk to you guys more about the marketing and cloud side of things.
Awesome. Thanks, Femi. And it was a very good insight from this point of view. I think what you're covering kind of makes sense also to what I wanted to bring insights when it comes to digital marketing, because as I wanted to, what I wanted to create like a starting point is that currently, if you're asking me, the current race is from zero to digital at this point, because right now, it's no longer a discussion of if or when, it's a discussion of how soon can you actually get to the digital point. And what I wanted to share was also what we have seen when it came to like online browsing and digital marketing statistics from our side. So the first thing that we actually covered and we've seen is while we always have mobile devices used for engagement, what we have seen in the past months was the fact that as we are now on our laptops, computers are actually back. So that means, for example, the shopping behavior has switched from the classical mobile towards the more on-premise type of laptop computer devices. So this is also, let's say, connecting to what we were discussing, the fact that online shopping trends have gone completely digital from this point of view. So that was one of the things that we have seen besides the traffic increase. The next point that I wanted to cover in my next slide was basically the fact that the social traffic continues to grow. So what we've seen here, not only that, is all the companies, all the people are now browsing, let's say, their Facebook, Instagram apps constantly, and that means there's a propensity for them to actually be engaged with brands on those specific channels. So what we have seen right now is like people are mainly focusing there, and also companies have started to focus there because, for example, I've seen an increasing number of sponsored ads coming onto Facebook, onto my personal Facebook, based off my previous segmentation. It's a very good way, for example, when you're seeing these ads coming on your Facebook app, you can actually check and see what is the segmentation that those brands are actually doing. So for example, if they're looking at specific demographics, location, brand engagement preferences and stuff like that to actually create that advert. But this is the main reason behind this is because we are now ever increasing this usage of mobile apps. Now, moving to my next slide that I wanted to cover besides the social is, in this area, as Femi was mentioning, some sectors have been more affected than the others. Although I would say some of the affected sectors actually have a bit of a bounce back or a rebound now that things are more relaxing. So what we've seen is there was a huge increase when it came to fresh and organic foods. When we're talking about household care products, I think there the main thing was toilet paper, but I think we're past over that, so everybody's happy from this point of view. We are talking about the increase, for example, with vitamins, of healthcare. All these things have been like the main point that people were driving. But at the same time, from my personal experience right now, what I can see is companies that are in the area, for example, of home electronics and appliances, decor, sport equipment, as Femi was mentioning, are more increasing to get more digital. Because most of the situation that we've seen so far were challenges that they were heavily reliant on the offline experience. And now it's a situation where we've kind of like shifted all these things to go strictly online, and this is a huge shift. Going to my next slide that I wanted to cover is, let's say, the retail part, as I was mentioning, has seen the worst of it, but also the biggest potential. So we're talking about stores being closed down, retailers closing. We're talking about definitely no store footfall, which was one of the biggest drivers when we talked about offline retail. And then again, we talked about the supply chains, the stockouts, all these things that have happened. Now they're getting towards a normal, but they have been an issue before, and they were like due to this reason of stockpiling from the consumer behavior. But all these things from our point of view as well, they represent an opportunity, because I've seen companies which in the past 2 to 3 months have shifted towards having a strictly online mentality, and they were able, by having like a right approach towards this, to get to the levels of commercial business that were pre-COVID from this point of view. So they were actually able to go from offline to online and not suffer on this whole thing, given the fact that they were seeing some benefits from the stores being closed down and actually being able to focus on online. So while this is like a hard hit area, there is also a huge area of opportunity right now. Now, moving to the next slide that we had is, when we look at the long-term effects. So this is what we see right now. The whole trends are mainly going towards online. So when I was saying 0 to digital, I wasn't like kidding around. The point is, not only we're talking about, for like, let's say, baby boomers, we're talking about Gen Z, we're talking about Generation X, and everything before us, like millennials. All of us now, we're much more prevalent towards online shopping, because we've done this for the past 3 months, and it's sort of like become a new norm. And that's why going online is a requirement. It's no longer like an option. So from my point of view, I think this is strictly one of the first things to take as a key takeaway of what's going to happen long term. Then definitely everything that happened will have an impact. I'm not going to be as ominous as Femi saying who has survived, because it's not like that point of thing, but definitely now there are very good questions to be asked about what do you do in the online world, and how fast can you actually go to your customers online and say, hey, we're here, this is our brand, you can engage with us and you can be safe with us. So this is extremely important at this point, because there will be an impact, but if you get things right, the communication and engagement with the brand, and also the whole shopping experience from marketing towards commerce and everything is going to be there. So that's a given thing. And then the supply chain impact is going to have a longer term. So we've seen delays in getting this whole stocks being filled up. I've been frustrated with some websites that were basically out of stock for a couple of weeks now. It wasn't toilet paper, so everybody can be safe. We're all good. But definitely it has been, it's definitely going to have an impact right now, because especially speaking about, let's say, within continents, traveling is not as easy as it once was. And that's a reality of actually shipping the goods is not going to be as easy as it was. So when we're saying, longer term, this is what we should have in mind, because this is turning to be extremely important. Now, I wanted to thank you very much. And if there are any questions, happy to take them as well.
Alex, I'll quickly have one for you. Well, people will probably be putting some in the chat box or Q&A. And you're touching on the slide on Generation Z, and how they quickly, judging by the numbers, adapt to the new situation. And I just wonder, like, there is commerce and shopping behaviors, right? But also interested to understand from the communication channels and communication habits and behaviors. Are those the trends that we're seeing currently, are they going to stick because Generation Z does it this exact way?
Yeah. So listen, from my point of view, I think it's a given thing, because if we look at the demographics of Generation Z, and I think there are some studies that show this, Generation Z is typically mobile native. So right now we're talking about people who are native to behavior on mobile websites, right? When we're talking about the resurgence of computers, that because our generation, who was, let's say, sort of like in between offline and online, we kind of like shifted towards working from our laptops and doing all these things, but other people are working from their phones very easily. So like if you have your phone right here, you cannot see it because it's the whole screen stuff. You literally are there. And this is changing because not only is Generation Z there, and that's one thing, for us as Generation X, as millennials, all these things have shifted. Like even like if we're talking about baby boomers, like my parents and their generation, they are now using mobile phones and they're now using online delivery because of this. So it's not a discussion of whether all these trends are going to change. And the other thing, which is also extremely important when it comes to Generation Z, and also this has come from studies, is they are much more experience oriented. So right now, what it matters is how do we engage as an experience. So the whole engagement needs to be consistent. When we're talking about shopping online, receiving newsletters, having mobile apps, all these things, they need to be consistent of a brand experience. So that's another thing that has been, I think, increasingly focusing as we're emerging from this whole lockdown, is this needs to continue. Like if we have a brand, it needs to be consistent, as it were, in all the stores that we had in all the shops. It needs to be consistent online, whether we're talking about emails, we're talking about the website, or we're talking about mobile apps. All these things need to be there.
Yeah, thanks. It makes sense. And thank you for doing my job. You actually have done a fantastic connection to our next speaker, Anna, because
Perfect.
She'll be taking the next few minutes to explain what one of the customers, BoxyCharm, is doing to win the hearts of their customers and consumers, and why it's so successful and popular in the US. Off to you, Anna.
Yeah, thank you for introduction. So yeah, talking about the different channels and communication, the great example of using the Salesforce Marketing Cloud is the BoxyCharm. So BoxyCharm is a leading beauty box subscription company in the USA and Canada. It has a tier subscription model with which starts as $25 per month, and each month subscribers receive from 5 to 10 full-sized beauty products in box, depending on the box type. So the products are selected based on the questionnaire that the user fills in during the sign-on process. So being a fully digital business, it's highly important to keep users up to date with all relevant changes, news, events, and action. So we prepared a short introduction video to show you the brand and interaction BoxyCharm with their community. Yeah, so as you could see, BoxyCharm communicates with their customers through all possible channels, including most popular social networks such as Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, and so on, and also emails and blog posts. The marketing team published sneak peeks at box items at a store and events, and also how-to videos and referrals from influencers. Their BoxyCharm CEO Joe Martin holds Instagram Live stories each month with Q&A session, major announcements, or preview each month's box. The customer support team interacts with consumers on social platforms, answering questions in direct messages or comments under the posts. So this approach helped the company to build a huge community of so-called charmers who are used to personalized service and immediately accessible content with information about the company events and news. So it also requires a lot of manual work from customer support to keep the communication on a high level. So taking it into account that the BoxyCharm community is growing rapidly each month, it requires more resources to support it. BoxyCharm has to automate as much manual work as possible. Otherwise, the risk of displeased customers can cause a low review rating and, as a result, decrease the number of subscribers. So BoxyCharm chose Salesforce Marketing Cloud platform due to its high capacity of the opportunities and such tools that it provides for personalization, leveraging customer data in marketing campaigns, integration with all social media platforms, and extended journey builder and extended reporting system, and also SMS and push notification tools. So on the next slide, I want to talk about how Salesforce Marketing Cloud allows administrator to collect the user data during the campaign and then use it for higher targeting rate. So BoxyCharm uses a CRM platform to collect customer data from all channels and then create personalized marketing events based on customer history. So BoxyCharm builds the audiences for marketing campaigns using the history of their customer actions, such as purchasing and reviews history, questionnaire submitted, and subscription type. This helps to achieve a high target rate and also open and response rate and customer loyalty. Hopefully, BoxyCharm emails are highly personalized and maintain a high engagement rate. So marketing cloud platforms help a lot in building successful acquisition and retention strategies. Retention is something that a lot of companies are struggling with, like how to keep customers motivated to interact with the brand and stay positive and responsive to marketing campaigns, how to keep them hot but not spam them or and prevent unsubscribing. So Since BoxyCharm is a pre-built subscription, their customer can pay upfront up to 12 months and receive the beauty box each month. So it is important to also make sure that customers are interested in continuing the subscription and also interacts with shopping and e-commerce part of BoxyCharm business. The same with acquisition. So it is critical to continuously analyze and track marketing campaigns, not only focusing on delivery and delivery rate reviews, but also many other KPIs such as open rate, click-through rates, conversion rate, and drop-offs to be able to see at what stage the business wins and at what stage the business loses. It is also very helpful to split the contacts into group and do the A/B testing to discover what campaign or journeys are more successful, and after that apply only successful campaigns and journeys. So make sure that you are asking customer about some actions in your emails, such as clicking the button to see more information on going online, and give them some bonuses or gifts for doing it accordingly to the customer's personal preferences. So the next slide will show the key points for future growth, such as we are investing in loyalty. So loyal customers are worth investigating time and add this guarantees to a business continuity. Salesforce Marketing Cloud allows us to visualize the customer loyalty metrics in marketing campaigns, such as how long the charmers have been with us, what the customer purchasing history is, how successful the customer journey was, and so on. Congratulating customers on a big and small wins, public or personal holidays, referring to some milestone that the user went through since joining the brand. These are the successful strategies to be used in order to raise and support the customer loyalty. BoxyCharm has a huge amount of users, user contacts information. However, not all of these are correct or real. Some of people do typos during the registration or entering old, not in use emails. And in order to fix this issue, BoxyCharm continuously review the delivery rate and adjust campaigns, contacting to the customer through different channels that they have, and asking them to correct the data to make sure that the messages that are sent to the customer are received. And Salesforce Marketing Cloud allows you to organize contacts into groups, channels, and run the campaigns more effectively with higher delivery rate. When we are talking about the future growth, the big part of it takes the push notification and SMS for BoxyCharm. So push notification and SMS are very useful for the sale events when we have limited number of items available or the time limited events. So it is important for a user to receive an immediate message that the event has started, so they have time to go and buy the item they want to. Not all of the users are reviewing their mailbox or opening the social networks all of the time. We also see that emails opening rates are going down in comparing to half of the year ago. That is why the next step for BoxyCharm is to initiate push notification and SMS. We will be able to inform customers about the event of or a specific product availability right when it is live, and be sure that they will notice it within a minute after receiving it. And as a result, user will not miss the event and business will have higher revenue and retention. So it takes me to the end of my session. And that is what I wanted to share with you as a case study of one of our customer from Canada and how it is using Salesforce Marketing Cloud.
Okay, thanks, Anna. And there is one question in Q&A. There are a couple of good questions from Kunal. Thank you for that. One that I think is very relevant to this specific conversation. It's what duration of subscription plans has BoxyCharm found more optimal for retention? Any feedback on lesser or more than 12 months period on subscriptions? And any A and B test results that we can learn from?
So it depends on different metrics from the audience that are subscribing, from their age and other metrics, and how they how long they have been with BoxyCharm. So as a first step in, users usually picks up a 1 month type subscription, but after that they are upgrading to next level, because the next level also a little bit cheaper, and you can pay upfront for 12 months, but basically it costs for 11 boxes, and the last one is would be for free for you. So users are receiving the first box to try it and then upgrading to the next levels. So usually we have right now during the pandemic period, users are at the beginning we saw the drop-offs of the subscription, but after 2 weeks we see that the number of users are growing and new users are coming. That is why we see right now that the 1 month subscription box is on the higher level.
Okay, so it's effectively giving the flexibility and the choice, but also offering the good payment or price options with that. Yes. Thank you. I think we need to push through. Thank you so much. And let's jump off back to Alex to learn more about Marketing Cloud and what comes next.
All right. Perfect. Thank you very much, Anna, and thank you very much, Daniel, for this. Okay, guys, so going a bit more into detail about what we were discussing from industry insights, what we need to talk about is the fact that some of the challenges that were, let's say, COVID driven are actually now constant, because what we're talking about again is the fact that the customer behavior needs are changing. They have changed and they continue to change right now, because it was a shift from this hybrid model towards a let's say increasingly online model. The second point that we need to address as well is the fact that right now we kind of need to have a sensitive and connected customer experience, but at the same time we don't need to stop marketing. I think this is one of the main things that was happening at the beginning of March. Everybody was a bit cautious about, should we advertise, should we? Everybody has this need to market, and it's perfectly fine as a marketer to promote. Just be sensitive about it. So for example, if you know your customers are, let's say right now, coping to focus, well, let's say by working from home or something, maybe you shouldn't charge them for delivery if that's a possibility. Or for example, if you know everybody's bombarding with messages about, hey, this is what we do, maybe you shouldn't do the same thing. So it's sort of like using good knowledge and using a good strategy to be sensitive and connected when it comes to the customer experience. Because as we were mentioning, and we're going to tackle this in very quickly, this is another point. The next point that we need to talk about marketing, and this is increasingly important, it's an issue but also a benefit, was the fact that now everybody's working remotely. So if we were talking about offline initiatives that we were having for the remainder of the year, that is something that we can realistically say it's not probably going to happen. Like, it's going to be very difficult to do offline marketing initiatives given the current background. So that is a challenge, because we used to have this, now we need to shift. The benefit is you actually have a lot more budget to spend on digital, because that budget that you had for those things can actually be used to have more engaged campaigns. So it's actually adapting to working on this remote basis. And the other point is, by having, let's say, online collaboration, you can actually have people run specific parts of the marketing campaigns from home, because that's where we are right now, despite the fact that we're all in Hong Kong, so you can trust us. It's the main thing here is extremely important that we need to adapt and make sure that we're tackling all these points on a proper way. Now, moving to the next slide that we have with regards to this is, again, the customer expectations are increasingly high, because at this moment, I know it sounds quite strange, but at this moment, you need to stand out to be relevant as a brand in the online world. It's no longer relevant just to have the product. Everybody has the product. The question is, what is the experience? The question is, how am I proposing myself to the brand? And that's why everybody's expecting to be, let's say, sort of like connected, to have this intelligence of knowing who to target at what time, what message. How can I actually trust you to give you my information? So for example, if you're asking me for my email address for a newsletter, I need to know you're not going to send me spam about things. I need to know that I can actually trust you with this information to get relevant information for me in return. So that's what we're saying. It's customers now have higher expectations than they did before. So we need to be more mindful about how do we engage with them and how do we create this relationship and experience. And there's a very good reason to do so. And if we go to the next slide, when we're talking about this, it's basically a new era, because before there was an increase of discussion about products, and then we were talking about services. But now it's actually about experience. So that's the main driver that has changed right now. We're no longer talking about marketing towards a product, saying this is my product and this is what it does. Yes, that is relevant. Or these are my services that I can offer. That is also relevant. The question is, what is the experience? So if I am going to your website, I'm not buying anything. Am I going to receive an experience that's going to want me to say, okay, I actually would like to buy something from these guys because I like the way that they actually engage with me? So the point is, experience is now a much more important differentiator. And actually, from my point of view, even during this time, like I'm always trying to understand what the experience is, but I had literally talking about this, how important it was. I had 2 online furniture, like actually 4 more offline, more online furniture stores that were actually ordering like a desk to work, right? So I actually had these people order me, like I order online 2 desks. One of them came in 3 days. The other one never came. When I engaged with customer service, they couldn't tell me if it was dropped off to the courier or if it was in their warehouse. They didn't know when it would be back, if I would ever have my money back, if that product even existed. So literally, one of them actually delivered in 3 days a desk with information telling me, you know, we've been dropping this thing off, it's coming now, it's going to happen in 3 days. The other guys literally were in a complete blackout. And when I asked them why this is happening, they told me because of COVID. And I'm really sorry, that is not the case, because the other company was able to give me that experience. So that experience for me is, what do you think? Like when I'm going to order the next furniture, and that's going to happen like for patio furniture, I don't think it's going to be the second company. Even though price-wise, they would be more reasonable. So that's what we're saying. It's becoming more important to have this experience. Even in this time, I want to have people that know and make my life easier from this point of view. It's not about being complicated. It's not being bombarded. It's just making things work, because everybody has other things on their head, and it's important to make it relevant as a brand. Now, moving to the next slide from this point of view is, again, we're talking about the digital channels, because we moved to this and now it's increasingly there. So the hunt comes on the digital channel. So how are we relevant? That's an extremely important point. So if we go to actually to the next slide about this, because this is something which was more or less, it's an imperative, as we said. It's a race from zero to digital for everybody right now. It's about being able to have digital channels of engagement, digital communication, being able to create your shop digitally. So we're talking about commerce as well. And the increase of digital engagement from people. So the point is, everything now needs to happen in this realm. And we need to understand and define, and this is where, for example, experience of partners such as eWave come in to actually define what type of experience do we need to define. What is the data that we have? How do we handle all these things? And how do we create a valid digital engagement model for our customers? So that's what we're saying is Salesforce from this point of view can support this. And if we go to the next slide, we're actually going to tackle more about this, about the fact that we actually put together throughout our 20 years experience, a platform that can actually help with all these things. Because it's not only about digital marketing, it's not only about e-commerce, it's not only about customer service, it's about the whole realm. Because for me as a customer, I don't know if you're using a specific e-commerce platform, a specific customer service, or digital marketing. For me, I want to be understood whether I'm talking to customer service or to the newsletter that you just sent me. So I want all these things to be relevant. I want the recommendations on the e-commerce platform to be relevant for what my experience is. So the point of Salesforce here is to actually, what we've created is a platform that gives an overview of the customer. So when we're talking about the ability to interact on customer service, on e-commerce, on digital marketing, all these things can be underpinned in a single place. And I know it's a bit of a mouthful to say customer 360. It's increasingly up there, customer 360 with customer experience. They're like, the new fad words. But the main important thing is not actually just the name. The main important thing is to have a holistic view of your customer. Understand what they've done when they purchased, understand how they're engaging on marketing channels, understand how they're actually buying online, what is their behavior, and then get an understanding of how this looks in your whole system. And the point is, everybody should have the ability to get this information from all departments to make it relevant. So that's the main point here. For the digital imperative, what we can actually put together is a platform to have this overview. And it's a building blocks model. So that means you don't need to get everything at one go. We can start and do like baby steps. You can go with a, for example, crawl, walk, run model, where you start off with a specific use case that you can then expand and grow further. So that's the main point. Now, if we go to the next slide, is we go a bit more deeper into the digital marketing side, which is, let's say, my area of expertise. And where we help here is we have this 3-tiered approach where it says know, personalize, and engage. So what does this mean? It's basically you need to know your customer, you need to know the data that you have, personalize the content, and engage for all these journeys. So when we're saying the platform, you're going to get all this information. Just wanted to very quickly check if there's any next slides that I should be mindful of. Yeah, so this is what we're saying. And if we look at the whole customer journey, this is something that at this moment, and we're very proud to do so, you can actually manage everything that you see here from Salesforce. So customer service, digital marketing, online commerce, all these things, they can be tackled. So thank you very much once again, and looking forward to the rest of the presentations.
Thanks, Alex. Fantastic. And yeah, we started responding to some Q&A in real time in the chat, and we will probably repeat some of those at the Q&A panel at the end. Thank you for that. So just for being mindful of time, we will continue and discuss Commerce Cloud now quickly. And I'd like to go to Team Halaska from Toys R Us Asia and Wade Gava from eWave, both are from Hong Kong. And Team will tell us why the company required this digital transformation and why they choose Salesforce Commerce Cloud, and will help with some detail on the project. Now, Tim, I know it's probably not the usual question, but Toys R Us is an iconic brand. So first thing I'd love to ask is how you personally was introduced to Toys R Us. When did it happen and how?
Yeah, well, I've been a Toys R Us kid for a long time. I remember Toys R Us first opened in Australia. My dad took me to the grand opening and I was like, wow, it's a 2-level store full of toys. I got my show bag, I got my balloon, and I got my Jeffrey the Giraffe hat and left with my Sega Mega Drive. So I was a happy kid. And that was a magic moment I've held on to all my life. And we're all about creating magic moments like that for our customers. So what we're trying to do at Toys R Us is make a moment like that in our stores. And obviously with digital now is recreate that online. So that's what Toys R Us is all about. And for me, I've kept growing, I guess. So I've ended up working in that store and worked for a business in Toys R Us, worked in operations, in store planning and design, and more recently in e-commerce. And I came across to Toys R Us Asia about 2 years ago now. So looking after the regional team here in Asia for across all of Asia. So we're looking at Hong Kong, Malaysia, Taiwan, Thailand, China, Japan, and Singapore. And where Toys R Us Asia is now an independent business. I've got our team here, a regional team in Hong Kong, who looks after each market. So we're all about supporting each of the teams and making sure they're doing the right thing and creating a great journey for our customers. We're going through a massive transformation right now digitally. So we're currently in the process of rolling out Commerce Cloud across a lot of our markets. We've launched our first market, Singapore, just over a month ago, which has been great. And we're continuing to roll out. So by the end of this year, we'll be Commerce Cloud in most of our markets. So it's very exciting times.
And the real devotion to a brand. You grew with them, you started working, you work in one country, worked in another country. That's a lovely personal story. And
yeah.
Sorry, that's like too specific, but can you give us some view on how did you actually choose the platform? What kind of challenges it was supposed to resolve? Why did you need this digital transformation all in all?
Sure, yeah. So globally at the time, I was in Australia and Toys R Us was run from the parent company at that time, Toys R Us Inc. So they had a global platform many years ago that was slowly rolling out. So we across Asia Pacific were all waiting for that to happen, and we're kind of just treading water. So each market essentially had its own platform, but was running in silo through different vendors and was very isolated. So every country was essentially not that focused on it and not really doing their own thing essentially. So we had limited teams, but were just focused on basics of getting a product online. And then any capital money that we were spending was spent on just maintenance and stability, and not things that we should be focusing on, like sales and fun things to generate things for our customers. So we had to find a system that would look after the technical side of things. So we as a retailer can do what we're meant to do, is focus on selling and the customers. So we came across Salesforce as one of the different partners we were looking at potentially going to. But it was a very hard sell, because at that time we had to brief the US and go, hey, we don't want to use your system. We've got this one here. So we had to really outline the benefits of what we needed to do. And one of the great benefits was we've built a centralized system. So we no longer have all these countries doing different things and complicated connections. We have one central system that each market can use. It simplifies our product range together, our ordering processes together, and all our investment together into one place. So it really simplifies things. And we wanted a partner that would grow with us and make sure the money that we're investing and the time and energy we're investing in this platform is something that's going to be with us for the future. And as we evolve, we know that's also evolving with us, and we can focus on what we should focus on, and Salesforce will keep us running and keep the toys going out the door, out the loading docks.
That's awesome. And you just said that it was a quite recent launch, right? So you effectively were in the middle of that, launching it. Can you talk us through the challenges of launching in this kind of time, and actually, has it given to you any competitive advantage?
Yeah, well, working for Toys R Us, it's all about Christmas, isn't it? And we always say we have to launch before Christmas, stay away from Christmas. But little did we know that COVID-19 was coming, and it was going to be crazier. So we've launched the Singapore site about a month ago. It's been a great experience. It's been an eye-opening experience. We have obviously that market's in lockdown, so all our stores aren't operating. So our website is suddenly the focal point and the source of revenue. So everyone's shopping online. So we've had many challenges operationally. We've had trying to get stock in, trying to get having the orders packed from our stores. So we're only running out of 4 stores there at the moment. So it's been a challenge, but we've really stepped up to the mark, and the team that have really, really driven it. With the platform, we've seen some great results. We've seen the speed improvements are crazy, our customer engagement and conversions growth, and we've had a massive increase in our loyalty members. So we couldn't be happy with the platform. It's tested us, but it's been really good. This year's all about back to basics for us. So while everyone's like, oh, the new site's awesome, it's great, it is. But essentially, we've just caught up to where we should have been before. So we're now just delivering the basics of what our customers expect for us. So the next steps for us is to continue the rollout this year with the other markets, but then look on what we can do on top of that, what we can build with Salesforce on top of the platform that we've got. So we've got what our customers expect, but what's the cool things? What's that special moment, like my grand opening in a store, that a customer can get online digitally with us that we can expand on. So that's the exciting thing about Salesforce, is where it can take us and what the next cool and exciting innovation is that we can jump on with.
That makes sense. And I think we have Femi covering later for what has just be coming with Salesforce soon. So that is going to be an interesting conversation. And probably the last question, but wouldn't be wrong not to ask about the project itself, right? And what kind of challenges you faced, because that's not an easy task, as you mentioned, right? What are the challenges, and how did you kind of overcome them?
Yeah, I guess one of the biggest challenges for a bricks and mortar business that's been traditionally focused on bricks and mortar is they're focused on bricks and mortar and don't want to do change. And so over the past year or so, it's been challenging to get everyone to see e-commerce as e-commerce. And it's not just another part of a business that's over in the corner where those cool people work on the fancy stuff. It's actually part of a business, and it's part of everyone. So it's been a journey to get everybody on board. We've been lucky that we've had the senior leadership to push that change. But we've gotten there, and we are now being treated like part of the business. With the recent COVID-19 situation, people have actually stood up and looking like, whoa, what's this? How can I help? What can we do? So it's actually been quite interesting that it's actually forced the business to kind of go over that tipping point now where everyone's very much focused on e-commerce and what we can do. So it's been really good timing for us to where we are. Some other challenges generally have been the teams are fairly green. We've newly formed our regional team, and in each market, it's not a large team looking after e-commerce. So we've had the support of eWave to help guide us a lot through the project management and the technical side of things. So our teams can really still operate the existing business. So it's been a great partnership with Salesforce and eWave to just get off the ground. So we're very excited to launch our Hong Kong and Malaysia sites very soon.
Good luck with that. Thank you. And let's quickly also talk to Wade and discuss the how question and what question, right? So Wade, probably you can talk us through what was done, what's so specific, features, customizations, whatever comes to your mind.
Sure, thanks, Daniel. Yeah, so obviously this was a very exciting project for us, and as Tim touched on, and as we can see on the screen now, one of the initial things that we really wanted to get right in terms of the how is the regional rollout component, right? So for us, what that meant initially is ensuring that we got the architecture right. So taking a step back, ensuring the solution is elegant in the sense that there's a lot of reusability. We have a core framework or reference architecture that can be reused within or throughout the regions. And then we build upon that, only customizing where absolutely necessary for those specific requirements and end markets. Another key component that we help to bring this together as an SI is obviously the integration. So for Toys R Us, the solution is an integrated omni-channel fulfillment solution in the sense that our inventory, what our customers are seeing online, is actually fulfilled by our store network in this case. So we've worked with our partners to integrate with systems like OMS for that fulfillment piece, PIM to enable an automated and workflow-based product enrichment and catalog integration, as well as CRM for loyalty, ERP, payments, and a number of others as well. And then I guess the other key components, as Tim mentioned, we've only just started, but some cool things happening already, we feel, from the user experience perspective, right? So, for example, if we talk about some of the features that we can see on the site today, and I think we have a bit of a visual example as well. One of the key things for us is the fact that Toys R Us is actually a multi-brand solution. So we have Toys R Us and Babies R Us, right? And what we've been able to do is implement via one single website that facilitates two different brands on two separate domains, but with one shared cart. So for us and our consumers, as they're browsing through their shopping experience, can actually switch between the brands if they're filtering by the age or category, have a look through the different product catalogs, but at the end of the day, have one consolidated shopping experience that we hope ties in as well in terms of UX perspective to some of the experiences that our consumers find in store. And to that point as well, we've started to build out some features on the front end, say for example, our toy finder, Jeffrey's toy finder, that allows a simple guided experience, for kids or their parents to find what they're looking for in a fun and easy way, as well as obvious interesting use of content and promotion and loyalty program integration within the front end of the site as well. So that's maybe touching on some of the how we started to bring this together from an SI perspective.
Okay, that makes sense. And sorry, we're getting short on time, right? But I really wanted to ask you about the challenges as well, how you see them from the implementation side of things. But probably the other good question would be, since Tim has already touched on that, the other good question would be, what was new in terms of the project experience for you? What was different from any other project as such?
Yeah, sure. So I think a couple of things, but obviously, in the current theme, in the current situation, this was one of our first go lives and quite a complex project with a number of different moving parts and things going on. But it was one of our first go lives with our whole team on the eWave side in isolation, and working in this distributed manner from home. I think in the past we've been quite used to the habit of getting in a war room together during these go lives and launches and so on. So the team needed to adapt, right, and to develop that working model remotely, which we were able to do really successfully. And that was an enjoyable part, I think, during a trying time for us to be able to successfully launch that site during that isolation period. That's maybe one key thing.
Thanks for that. We should be moving. Anyone on the call, if there are some questions, please continue posting them. We will keep them for Q&A session after. And now it's time to move to Sushant. Well, something unheard of, Sushant, something like totally new Commerce Cloud and financial services. How do you marry those two apps, right? Tell us your story. That's something very, very unique, I must say.
That's true. First of all, thanks, Daniel, for the opportunity to speak to the team here. And hello, everyone. I'm Sushant Sahani. And in next 8 to 10 minutes, I'm going to share my personal experience of driving digital transformation using Salesforce ecosystem within a financial services industry. So with that in mind, let's go to the next slide. As a digital practitioner, the number one question I get from the execs in every company I work for, every company I have advice for is, Sushant, how do we get set up? It's a complex topic, digital transformation. Financial services industry is complex. It's regulated. There is compliance in it. What's the starting point? How do we get set up? So what you see on this slide is a short answer to that question. And the renovate, elevate, transcend model has really worked well for me and in my previous employers, where the complexity of the digital transformation can be broken down into these 3 different mindsets. So you start with changing the mindsets and you break down into 3 different sub-strategies, which is the renovate, elevate, and transcend. And that has been a really successful mantra on how you get set up and how you start approaching this complex topic. With that in mind, let's go to the next slide. The second question I get from the execs, how do I measure success? I'm writing a big check for digital transformation, and what does success looks like? What does the scorecard look like? And the answer to that question is on this slide. In a few months ago, I would have put more commercial driven KPIs on this slide. But the message here is very, very clear. Pace matters. And not only pace matters, but pace will be the predictor that will determine the success on how financial services industry survives and adopts or thrives in this situation. So the key takeaway is when you think about digital transformation and you're thinking about the mindsets that we talked about, and think about the scorecard and make sure that pace is an integrated part of your scorecard, and delivering rapid improvement events as part of your digital transformation is key. And that will require you to rethink your approach on how you build or deliver digital transformation. And that's where partners like eWave or partners like Salesforce from a technology platform, they really do help. And believe me, I've tried to do things in-house, tried to do it with hybrid mode, and I'll speak about my experience in some of the KPIs. But this is the time when pace is very important, and that's going to challenge the traditional ways of delivering digital transformation. So just keep that in mind. And with that, let's move on to the next slide. For this slide, I always call this slide as the but slide, because the Sushant, we get renovate, elevate, transcend, makes sense. It's a really good way of thinking it, really good way of breaking it down. We get the pace, we will put that as a KPI, but, and this is the but slide, and the but is on the right-hand side. You can see that the diagram on the right-hand side is the reality that I inherited when I joined Travelex as the global head of channel. I inherited around 700 different point solutions, 27 plus different order capture systems, and around 18 different platforms that I was aware of. And if you put together a heat map or how these things were connected, that is a real diagram. And the first step was to understand this complexity and not ignore it. Because what happens is that in the aspiration of digital transformation, you kind of ignore the reality, which is on that right-hand side picture, and then you fail. So the first recommendation here is make sure you understand your own complexity, you map it, and then you embrace it. And that's essentially, what I'm trying to say on this slide is I had to do that. And it's a very tedious exercise, but make sure you take the time and do that evaluation. You can bring in partners, eWave or Salesforce pre-sales team. They can essentially help you even map some of these complexities that are existing in your platform. And we kind of did partner with Salesforce right from early on to understand what complexity we are dealing with. So with that, let's look at how did I apply the mindsets that I'm positioning, the renovate mindset, the elevate mindset, and transcend mindset, and what that really meant at my previous employers or previous engagement. So the renovate mindset, you saw that complexity. Are we on the next slide? Yeah. Sorry, it's the pivot the mindset slide. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. So on the renovate mindset and the renovate strategy was all about decoupling this complexity so that we could move with pace. Otherwise, this complexity that I was talking about would have really anchored us down. And key takeaway on the renovate, it's not a rip and replace strategy. That's actually a recipe to failure. So if you think about, I'm going to achieve digital transformation by ripping and replacing systems, you have live customers, you have live partners, and that does not work. So renovate mindset is about, renovate strategy is about gradually phasing out and phasing out the legacy and phasing into the new normal. And platforms like MuleSoft can essentially help you achieve that decoupling and easy phase in and phase out. And that's what we did at TravelX, or we were hoping to achieve that at TravelX when I was there. The Elevate concept is all about understanding the customer and managing your existing, the key word is existing product mix and channel mix in an efficient way. And I'll give you an example. At TravelX, we had a different order capture system for web. We had a different order capture system for mobile. We had a different order capture system for retail. At Western Union, we had very similar point solutions scattered around all parts of our business. And the entire front, mid, back office was designed to process a transaction. There was not a customer view, it was a transaction view in all of our systems. So the Elevate was all about elevating the company's model. Instead of processing a transaction, it was about managing a relationship with customer. And we literally had to look into the front, mid, and back office processes to actually change that and rewire those. And we did that by applying, CRM systems like Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, core products of Salesforce into our mix. And the outcome of that was we were able to engage anywhere and fulfill anywhere. I think Wade spoke about, omni-channel commerce ecosystem. It's very similar to that we were achieving, is order anywhere and fulfill anywhere platform. And the transcend is the model or the strategy where you really reinvent your own value chain and start, the concept I speak about here is a marketplace of solutions and create an ecosystem. And I'll give you in Western Union, we were payments, I was part of the payments division as head of products. And in that, we were just taking phone calls and doing payments. Somebody's buying massive amount of shipments and we will facilitate that payment. That's at the bottom of the value chain. But transcend mindset or transcend digital transformation strategy was how do we move up the value chain and start at the procurement? Because that shipment is part of a bigger plan. So what is that the customer is wanting to do? And we started providing them the procurement solution so they can actually hunt for right suppliers and importers. They could also do cash management on our platform, invoice management on the platform. And all of that essentially increased our payments by 280%. So there is that is the transcend mindset. At TravelX, we were starting to engage with the customer pre-trip, during trip, and post-trip. So it was not just the transaction anymore, but how we can provide them complementary products such as insurance and so forth and so on. And hence it's an ecosystem play. It's the marketplace of solution that you offer to the customer. So that was essentially the journey that we really took these two companies on. So next slide. And while we were on that journey, we had to hit some execution principles. And these were our guiding principles that we looked at. And as you can see, where I think we're on the previous slide, I think the execution principles. Yeah. The customer centricity, which is the customer 360 platform that we spoke about. The omni-channel commerce, which is the meeting the customer where they are, was achieved by doing the Commerce Cloud. Reusable architecture, which was essentially our IP. So we kind of started to build that in-house, but we were considering to use platforms like MuleSoft to decouple the legacy. And for speed of execution, this was a massive change internally in the company because the mindset was to build. And we had to rewire that mindset to start partnering with key players in the market, licensing some of the technologies rather than building them, and focusing where the IP is and only develop the proprietary IP that we needed in-house. So we had to create this build, license, partner framework and get the buy-in from CAO and the rest of the organization as well. So those were some of the execution principles which guided our delivery. So moving on to the next slide. So just to give you an outcome that we achieved at Travelex, and when we kind of applied the Transcend model, so we kind of started pivoting to everything as a service. So look at our core services such as compliance, FX, payments. Everything was essentially done using a service model, service delivery model. And on top of that, we added our products as modules versus having verticalized silos. And on top of that, we applied the commerce layer, Commerce Cloud layer that allowed us to control our channel mix and product mix. So we kind of rewired our point of sale system to be exactly same as our web system. So there was no difference, and we could see the order travel from web to mobile to even our partners and even our retail. And that ecosystem that we created allowed us to fire different adjacencies. So let's say we want to provide payments or FX to universities and college students. In the old way, we would have to develop an entire vertical channel, cost, time to market, separate team, separate technology framework. All of that started collapsing, and we were started to add use cases in a rapid manner, whether it was adding importers and exporters, adding pensions or payrolls, providing solutions to a developer in our partner community, adding regulators. So for example, in China, we had to include China Safe, which is their regulatory body. And they needed some APIs that we didn't have. And traditionally, we would have started building some reports and this and that. But in the new framework, the Transcend model, it really allowed us to bring even regulators as part of our ecosystem. And that's the infrastructure. That's the new Transcend model that you're seeing on this slide, and some of the outcomes we were able to achieve by moving into this model. So the next slide, please. So the platforms that we use, you can see it on the right-hand side, for achieving the omni-channel customer engagement, which was essentially the front office transformation, where we delivered order anywhere, fulfill anywhere. We called it the universal storefront. And universal storefront is, all our storefronts coming together on a single platform. Self-service was a key part because to reduce the cost of servicing the customer. So ability for partners to log in, and we use Community Cloud to enable self-service. So it was a combination of Community Cloud and Commerce Cloud that really allowed us to do the omni-channel, but also do it in a self-service manner where possible without losing the engagement with the customer. The second aspect was around customer lifecycle management, and that was done by deploying Sales Cloud and Service Cloud, which is Salesforce's core platform, and that really allowed us to change the game on partner onboarding. If people who are in the financial services industries know that there's a lot of internal collaboration is needed to process a transaction. There are compliance checks, there are regulatory checks, and we were able to drive that internal collaborations through using these Salesforce platform. And the third part was accelerated by MuleSoft, where we essentially created these agnostic microservices that allowed us to decouple from the legacy. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Sushant. Just a time alert for us. So we should probably cover the statistics slow.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, so we are on the so what slide, Daniel, right now. So these are some of the benefits which were included in our business case, and they're also supported by the customer success survey. We were able to see the cross-channel volume uplift, improved conversion. NPS definitely was positively moved up. Lower cost to innovation. Our development cycle was around 6 months before, or even more. I remember talking to a partner who was waiting for 6 or 7 functionalities to be delivered for 1 year. So that was the kind of the backlog that we were dealing with, and we were able to really change the game and delight our partners on our speed to innovation. And the next slide, please, Vera. And the productivity, the internal productivity of the staff was another key factor, because our teams were so siloed. Having this common architecture and a common tech stack really allowed us to improve our productivity. Also, the time to market and the cost of development. I wouldn't be able to give the exact numbers, but it was, if we were to build this in-house using our team, using our talent, we were looking at 3x the cost and almost 2x the time. So when we did our business case, it was very clear to us that choosing the right partner and using the license framework rather than building it in-house was really commercially beneficial for us to accelerate the transformation that we were doing. With that, Daniel, back to you.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. I have a bunch of questions. Why didn't I see Marketing Cloud on the list? How could you do it in financial services within 6 to 12 months? Because they're notorious for, taking forever to launch something. But sorry, we just don't have time. We're going to have to move. I'll wait with those until the end of the session if we have the time. I'll ask them at the end. Thanks so much. Some fantastic case you have here. And now we'll be off to Femi to bring us through and talk us through the journey of the Salesforce Commerce Cloud and what's been happening in their world.
Thank you, Daniel. And Sushant, the Toys R Us team, honestly, congratulations on some fantastic projects. They're very inspirational to see what's going on in the world, and a very unique use case there, Sushant, for your team. Congrats again. So yeah, we'll talk about Commerce Cloud this is like a quick overview session of the platform. So we bring you back to the Salesforce Customer 360 platform, which is essentially what you've seen Toys R Us and Sushant's team able to build out their customer engagement portals on. So this is a variety of solutions, and what we're focusing on right now is commerce moving forward. If you click here, you'll see the Commerce Cloud platform essentially. And our Commerce Cloud platform, similar to the Salesforce Customer 360 platform, contains a number of tools and excited to make you guys aware of in terms of coming to market. Live in the market now, we now have our own order management system. So those of you who are familiar with order management, we can name some players like Manhattan Associates, Fluent. These are some of the leaders in the market. Salesforce have made the decision a few years ago to build out our own order management system. And the exciting thing about this is it's built on our Service Cloud portal, which is one of our core platforms. So that's a new solution that's available in market today. We've already signed a bunch of new customers there because everyone's looking for that single point of view for the customer. And the advantage here is it's built on Salesforce and it still has market leading capabilities. And then to the left-hand side, you see we have our B2C commerce platform and we have a dedicated B2B commerce platform. Now, both of our platforms are capable of delivering B2C and B2B, but where we have specialist businesses, we tend to focus on one or the other. So if someone's 90% B2B, we're gonna look at the B2B platform, and vice versa with B2C. We then have our CMS and commerce portals, which is our community portals, which Sushant touched on slightly there with a community cloud. So this is the commerce version of community cloud that we now have to create experiences, community engagements on top of your e-commerce platform. Next slide, please. So I'm excited to confirm that Salesforce on the B2C side has been considered the leader or one of the leaders in B2C commerce for a very long time now. But more recently, we were announced the leader in B2B commerce, which is a massive achievement because we've only been in that space for about 3 years. Through the acquisition of a Salesforce application called Cloud Craze, we've onboarded hundreds of customers since that acquisition, and it's currently the fastest growing cloud at Salesforce B2B commerce. And a Forrester Wave report just came out at the beginning of May, and we were even surprised because, you know, this is traditionally a space that's been dominated by legacy technologies to now be placed #1 in B2B. But of course, in the B2C area, we've always been considered the leader, if not one of the leaders in the industry. So you can rest assured in that regard, guys, that you're looking at a very strong platform to go to market with. On to the next slide, please. So presence and internationalization. I wanted to include this slide because you understand the scale of the platform when you look at this slide. So last year, the platform processed $40.1 billion in GMV, gross merchandise value. That doesn't include delivery or tax. It's a ton of money going through the platform, and about 20% of this occurs during Black Friday, which is just insane. We saw something like 700 million unique visits hit the platform globally, and scale and uptime is a huge unique advantage for us. So since 2004, we've had a 99.98% uptime. So you can rest assured that when you do see these tremendous peaks in traffic and volume, you don't need to get in touch with us to require more bandwidth or brace the platform significantly. It's something that we prepare for all of our customers because trade is the most important thing on our platform. And I think to the top right-hand side is one of the most important statistics. So I have customers transacting under $5 million a year. So we're very suited for new and exciting, fast-growing customers. Then I have customers transacting $8 billion online a year. The average growth across my customers is approximately 35% year on year. And that's mainly because of internationalization. So 60% of my customer base internationalizes. And that's why we have these logos here to show you where customers are transacting in various countries, as you saw there with Toys R Us. Now, same site growth, customers who only have one country or one website, they're still seeing a 23% average year on year growth on the platform. And there's a number of things that contribute to that, which I'll get to shortly. Next slide, please. Just conscious of time, I better whiz through. So we don't have everyone on the call under NDA, so I cannot share the details in too much detail for you guys, right? We're going to look at 2017 and 2018, but what we are hoping to demonstrate to you today is time to market, right, which is super important, and also continuous release, continuous innovation. These are humongous USPs for Salesforce Commerce Cloud. We have 8 to 12 releases a year, containing 50 to 100 changes. And these are revenue generating changes. Now, don't get me wrong. Some of these changes can be quite simple, like a new language. So there's 5 dialects of Arabic. We introduced a new one in 2018, right? But sometimes if you look there towards the middle, you see something called Einstein predictive sort. Sometimes the change and the feature we release to the platform can be so impactful that it could literally mean a significant impact on your bottom line as an e-commerce business. So Einstein predictive sort means that if Sushant and Daniel make a search on a website, based on who they are, the results, the sorting resulting order is going to be different. So Sushant's a big spender. He tends to spend $500 every time he comes to the website. The website knows that, so it puts the most expensive items at the top, the most luxurious items at the top. Daniel, he's a stingy guy. You know, he spends like $10 every time he comes to the website. He's got loads of money, but he doesn't want to let go of it. So they put the cheapest items at the top for Daniel, so he's getting his best value. That kind of intelligence is dynamic. So once you set it up, it starts predicting and making suggestions for the merchandisers. And like everything on Salesforce, these changes that you can make to the platform are done with drag and drop clicks, not code. We have something called Page Designer that makes it very easy for merchandisers. And even we had a CEO in a demo make a change to the web storefront a few weeks ago, and he has no technical background. These are the real advantages, the unique advantages of the platform. If you go to 2018 now, you'll see that that continues. And towards the bottom of your screen, you're seeing logos, right? And this is not to show off that we have customers in a strong space. This is to show you the timeline it takes us to get businesses live. So this actual example of Toys R Us, I believe, is Scandinavian. So we have Toys R Us in the Middle East through a company called Alfutaim. Of course, in APAC with the guys on the call today, thank you so much for joining, but also in the Scandinavian. And these are all 3 separate entities of Toys R Us, and all have coincidentally chosen to use Commerce Cloud, right? This particular project went live in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 months. But then in the middle, you have Huda Beauty. We've got them live in 11 weeks with an MVP. Echo Shoes, 7 weeks. And the exciting thing is once you're live with your core instance of Commerce Cloud, you can spin up additional countries in weeks. So we have an average of 4 to 6 weeks that certain partners can get to deliver particular countries once they're live with their core version of the platform. So speed of deployment is another massive advantage for us. And then also, if you look at the top there, you see Einstein search dictionaries. So our predictive search, we have a merchandising tool out of the box in the platform, receives significant improvements there with search dictionaries, with new words and synonyms that you can use to make sure that the customer's not seeing nothing when they make a search. Statistically, if a customer makes a search on your platform and they see nothing, something like 30% of them leave the website. So you need to make sure no matter how they're typing, whatever error they're making, you're getting some kind of result when they make a search. This allows you to make that change more freely, more easily on the platform. So that continuous release, you see continuity there, but also consistently proving in time to market, on budget projects there in the bottom side of the screen. The next slide, please. So how do we drive that 35% growth? Because it's all well and good me saying that, but anyone could say that. What's actually driving this growth? If you look at this slide here, it starts talking to the individual key drivers that are unique to our platform, where we're adding extra value to that customer's e-commerce experience. So overall impact at the top there, you see varies significantly. If you look down towards SEO, we have an SEO layer, certain languages and certain manipulations you can do on the platform, again with clicks not code to improve your SEO. Conversion rate is a huge one for us. So predictive recommendations, predictive sort, which I showed you earlier, predictive behavior. So we can have different storefronts for different customers as well. All of these things are driving as little as 2% to 28, 30, 70% increase in conversion and average order value. And overall, we see a 35% increase in revenue for customers who are using the platform versus customers versus what they were doing before they had the platform. So it's a platform that's built for growth and partnered with you for the future. It's continuously innovated on, so you're ahead of the market. But as Sushant showed you, you're not limited to the innovations that we embed on the platform. You can go ahead and customize on top of it and do anything that's unique to you to create your own unique look and feel or consumer journey on that platform, in addition to the innovations that we're going to make for you. I believe that's the end of my slide. Was there another one?
Thanks. That's good. We only have 5 minutes left.
Okay, brilliant.
And I'm going to make it really difficult for Ketan, but Ketan, it's your time. Thanks, Femi. Fantastic and very interested stats. Let's go, Ketan, your turn, and you will have a chance to conclude for us, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all our panelists so far. Folks, if you've got any questions, please put it in the chat now. So look, what is direct to consumer all about? I'm going to take you through that in the next few slides. Let's move on. So Daniel, Femi, Alex, and Tim were all talking about consumer behavior and that seismic shift recently. The need to provide products and services online, it's never been more essential than it is now. Customers who've never purchased online before are now taking that leap and adapted to digital. So that transformation is happening at a very rapid pace. Clearly, the opportunity in timing has never been so compelling. However, some of the challenges that we hear when we talk to customers are, how can we launch a best-in-class commerce storefront quickly? Can we have an enterprise solution that is cost-effective? And are there packages available that make it simple for us? So if we move on, the answer to all of those questions is either yes or as simple as this. Together with our partner Salesforce, eWave has created several packages for direct-to-consumer. We call it Sonic. And the intention here is to get you live quickly with minimal investment upfront, moving customers away from large upfront investments to OpEx models that are more fit for purpose, and providing a fully end-to-end partnership depending on what your requirements are. If we move on to the next slide. So our first option for direct-to-consumer, eWave is part of the Quick Start program. And it's designed and developed by Salesforce. And this is a package that is specifically for customers who are looking to go live and leverage the proprietary reference application called SFRA. Okay, so it's a mobile optimized, fully functioning storefront. It includes the software license, services, and support fees, and they're all set. And it's a minimum 12-month contract with Salesforce and the partner. And there are pre-built integrations for payment, taxation, and shipping options. And it's designed to take the friction out of the implementation and managed services and go live within 4 weeks. So that's option one. Let's move on to option 2. So our second option is our headless D2C option. This is designed for customers who are looking for more flexibility and agility. So customers like Travelex, for example. Okay, so we have designed our headless framework to deliver digital experiences for financial services, for grocery, for travel and transport, and a whole range of industries, specifically looking at unique experiences that are complex in this approach. So that's what this approach is for. And there are benefits to our headless framework, which is pre-integrated with Salesforce. Next slide, please. The 3 main elements of our headless D2C offer are as follows. It's PWA, so it uses progressive web application. It's headless, so it's decoupled from the front end to the back end, allowing you to make much more changes. And it's modular, so all the elements on the page can be changed quickly and easily, not just content, but all the elements. And the benefits of this approach are the benefits of PWA are the page load times are instantaneous, and you can do offline mode, and there's also, it supports notifications just like an app. So that brings me to the end of our 2 D2C options for customers. I am now going to skip the Q&A section. So let's move on, please. And let's move on to, so look, if there's anything you want to discuss further with our team, please send us your inquiry to hello@ewave.com, and our team will be in touch with you soon after.
Or actually to any of the presenters who will be happy to redirect the questions for you and connect you with the right people.
Okay, and let's move on. So look, that's all we had planned for you. We really hope that you enjoyed our event. Thank you to all our panelists for taking the time to share their experience and insights. Thank you for being with us throughout. We hope you found this valuable. And thank you to everyone behind the scenes who organized this event and made it happen. Before you leave us, we have a very short survey of 5 questions, which will appear shortly. Enjoy the rest of your day, good afternoon, or good night, depending on where you've connected to us from. Bye-bye.
You got to pump it up, don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up, don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up, don't you know, pump it up. You got to